I'd like to just do firstly an introduction to the guest today for this Techstyler and Conservation X Labs Microfibre Innovation Series. Techstyler is working with Conservation X Labs to bring attention and to educate people on the opportunity to win part of 650K for microfibre innovation challenges, innovations, I should say, sorry, upstream. So innovations that either replace current microplastic shedding textiles or create a solution that reduces shedding altogether. So my guests today are startup co-founders Sophie Billi-Hardwick and Marie Bouhier, and they've developed the world's first biodegradable tights in anaerobic landfill, so well-controlled landfill, within 5 years, as opposed to the usual 40 to 100 years that a pair of synthetic tights would take to biodegrade. And what we'll be discussing today is their journey, why they've chosen to work with what's a landfill destined product rather than shoot for recycling, biodegradability versus compostability, and how to tackle the ongoing microfiber shedding during washing and wear. So I'm going to just throw it open firstly to Sophie to give us a little bit of a background of your 2 years with this startup and how you've launched this first product to market.
Hi, Brooke. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for everyone for tuning in. I'm Sophie, this is Marie. So we have co-founded Billi London, the world's first biodegradable tights. And the reason why we have done this, and it goes back more than 2 years ago, actually. Marie started doing some research in biodegradability and tights back in 2017, but we both joined forces and decided to tackle the waste issue generated by tights in landfill. We are the only tight brand tackling the issue at the source, and when I say the source, I mean the waste that tights create in landfill. And the reason why we have this issue is because it is impossible today to recycle an old pair of tights into a new one, because the technology to separate the nylon and the elastane, which is, most tights are made of nylon and elastane, and when it's the case, you cannot separate both materials to recycle them, which is why when they end up in landfill, they are then going to pollute and stay there for 40 to 100 years. So we've looked at biodegradability as a solution because it was already a successful solution in the fashion industry, but it was never applied to tights. So what we've done across the last 2 years is intense research and development in trying to apply a technology that existed into our tights. It is extremely complex to produce tights and to make tights, and it's been 2 years of long development to actually try to master these yarns that are magically biodegrading in landfills, if I can say.
Yeah. Just for anyone joining, thank you all so much for joining. I can see a lot of people coming in. Please just pop your microphones on mute for now, but also feel free to jump in on the chat thread and pop any questions in there or comments. I will come to them as we go through. So yeah, what struck me actually firstly about your approach here is that what you're doing really is using an existing material, a couple of materials, a nylon and an elastane that already exist on the market, that are readily available, but that aren't really being utilized to their full effect. And during our conversation before this, we kind of surmised that maybe there are some incumbents in the hosiery industry who have very established ways of working, very established supply chains and raw material suppliers, and that changing their product offering to this biodegradable option would disrupt the way that they already do business. So herein lies the opportunity for a startup to kind of start from scratch and accept that maybe you won't have a full product offering across all the deniers from the get-go, but that what you do provide is a better alternative to what already exists. Now, that relies on one very important point that's been debated very, very kind of vigorously on LinkedIn for the last week, and that is about accessing landfills that are well managed, which I want to clarify here, and I want it to be clarified for everyone, which I think means anaerobic conditions with high humidity, where the biogas, the CO2, is captured, and the other resulting components are biomass. Can you talk us through that, Marie? Because I know that's what your research has been focused on. And I'd really like to kind of understand what this landfill situation is, and how you know that your types are ending up in those types of landfills.
As Sophie was saying, we looked at a solution where the recycling options were sort of like limited, which is in a way that tides are ending up in landfills. So we know that 64% of women, they are throwing their tides in their household bin, and an household bin, when it's an household bin, is then either like redirected to incineration or to landfills. And I think there's a real issue in the society, in the fact that when we speak about landfills, we sort of picture the open air landfills, which are landfills which are still existing on the market, but they are existing in countries in development. But in Europe, such as in the UK or in France, these landfills are banned, and now landfills are what we call controlled landfills, so engineered one, where everything which is the byproduct, so the biomass and the biogas, is collected, and it's to make an energy recovery. So this is why we sort of like, when we know that landfill is not the perfect solution, because when you're looking at the whole waste management hierarchy, you obviously have recycling, you have reuse, recycling, incineration, then you have landfills. But the real reality, like the hard reality today, is that you still have a lot of landfills, and then we're not going to move overnight from a society where landfill is not used to having a lot of different recycling options, such as composting, anaerobic digestion, all those kind of solutions that are starting to be developed and available on the market, but the facilities are not still quite here. So this is why, for us, it was really important to find a solution how to reduce the amount of waste that ends up in landfill. And so it's really important to know, and that landfills are not really those open landfills that we see. They are controlled, and there are regulation established by the governments to make sure that everything which is gathered in landfills will be sort of recovered and produce new energy.
And so what you're doing really with your startup is tackling the problem as it stands now, because a lot of the conversation, as I mentioned earlier, on LinkedIn and elsewhere on social media around your product has been, why not attempt composting? Why not shoot for that sort of infrastructure where there's captured gas, and that seems to be perhaps the preferable option, but the infrastructure does not exist currently. So it seems that what you've done is apply these existing yarns to solve a problem that we have right now, with a view to kind of looking forward and perhaps widening the scope of the products that you provide, and perhaps introducing other materials along the way. For example, we spoke about plant-based feedstock for your synthetics, and that's obviously something that's on the horizon for you guys, but not currently available on the market, which is a limitation. Let's talk a little bit about the recycling problem in detail, because I think for a lot of people working in materials, or even on the consumer side, recycling and reuse are the kind of the ideal scenarios. Could we drill down into why hosiery products have such, well, I mean, apparel has poor recycling rates, but why hosiery has particularly poor recycling rates, and any information you might have on how long it might take for us to turn that around.
Should I go? Yeah. So yeah, as Sophie was explaining at the start, the thing is, elastane and nylon, they are two polyamide materials, and they are synthetic materials. So they are produced by human, and their chemical structure is so similar that it's impossible to separate them, because the whole recycling process behind is basically having this huge oven, which objective is to separate both by sort of melting the fibers. But the thing is, both fibers will stick together because chemically they are kind of the same. So this is why, for the moment, unfortunately, no one has found a solution and developed the right technology to separate them. There was actually a consortium working on this from 2011 to 2019, and they haven't really managed to find a solution which could be commercialized. So we still have a real issue here. And also, what is an issue for the tile industry is that you can't really reuse the product once it's lathered. Well, I'm pretty sure no one really wants to wear like a tight with a hole, So this option of reusing, repurposing to another type of garments is sort of on the side. You can obviously repurpose it by doing sponges at home, do-it-yourself kind of product, So it's a bit difficult. And once, if you are someone who's dropping your old tights in a recycling collection textile center, well, then they will have a look at all the products and have a look at which one can be recycled into a new yarn. For instance, tights can't be, so they will be shredded and could be sent to other industries which are producing insulation panels. But if they're considering that it can't be, it's useless, you can't do anything with that. It will be either redirected to incineration or to landfill. So we never think of what's happening for product and garments once they are in the recycling center, because we must not forget that only 1% of the textile collected in recycling centers are only recycled. Only 1% are recycled.
So where does the rest go?
So where does the rest go? It's so recycling is still a good option, but it's pushing a bit the solution. It's pushing the problem, and also it's a bit expensive. It's energy consuming as well.
Yes.
We must not forget that a fiber can be recycled indefinitely, except metal or glass. So there's a whole. So to everything, there's pros and cons.
And I think we will also, our product find its magic in landfill, because that's when it's going to biodegrade in a record time. And to go back to your point earlier about composting, there's a whole education that needs to be done here, because sometimes people think that what is biodegradable means it's compostable, and it's obviously not the case. Our tiles will only biodegrade in an anaerobic environment, and this environment, an anaerobic environment, is only in landfills. It's not in compost. And the same goes with recycling center. We will always advise to bring your tights and any pieces of garments into a textile collection center. However, only 10% of women bring their tights to collection center, which is why we have decided to tackle the solution at the source and find a way for the tights, when they end up in landfill, not to pollute for hundreds of years. So I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but they will biodegrade in a record time of 5 years, which is up to 20 times faster than traditional tights.
Yeah. And I guess it sounds like right now, really what the barrier is the chemical dissolution, the separation of the synthetics that go into tights. I guess if that's cracked, if there's a solution for that, then recycling becomes a viable option if it's viable in every other way. So in terms of logistics, in terms of energy consumption, chemical consumption for recycling and all that sort of thing. But I completely understand what you're saying. You're realists in the sense that there is a very urgent problem right now, and this is the best available opportunity to solve it. I think I'd love to kind of steer the conversation a little bit now towards microfibers and microplastics, because it's true that although Billi London tights, as you say, find their magic in landfill when they biodegrade, during their lifetime they still behave like other synthetics, so they will shed microplastics during washing and wear. And this is exactly where the Conservation X Lab's Microfibre Innovation Challenge is funneling its resources to try to fund solutions to that problem. How are you guys tackling that at the moment? What would be your ideal kind of pathway to innovating around the microfiber shedding?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question, and we don't really have the answer in the fact that we are using synthetic fibers, so we know we obviously, like, when our tights are being washed, they're releasing microfibers and microplastics, and this is something we would love to have a solution, and for the moment we don't really have one. I mean,
that's why we're extremely excited about this competition, because a solution has to come, and it must exist. But the dream, and we're working on it, would be to be able to work with biomaterials and plant-based material, and even if we can't achieve the 0% non-microplastic shedding, at least if we could reduce it by half, that would be the start of a battle.
Yeah, because I think at the moment, really, what the industry and also consumers in domestic scenarios are left with is guppy bags or filters that can collect microplastics of a certain size, and generally the filtration process only captures the largest microplastics, so small ones still slip through, and even the ones we do collect by either using a guppy bag or some other filtration typically end up in the bin, which means they end up in landfill, which means they eventually end up in our waterways anyhow. So it's a problem that does sort of seem to need a completely new solution, short of using cotton or wool. we need a chemical-based or a bio-based solution. We've got a few more minutes now, so maybe it'd be nice to talk a bit about the entrepreneurial journey, because so a couple of people have just joined. Could they pop their mics on silent, please? I think Benita. Thank you. And there's a couple of others, I think, as well. We're getting some background noise there. That's super, thank you. Let's maybe talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey, because both of you, Sophie and Marie, are not actually from the hosiery industry, and you launched into this pretty much from scratch 2 years ago. Maybe talk to us a little bit about your experience working with yarn suppliers and finding a manufacturer who would develop the product with you.
Yeah, it's been a long and exciting journey for the past 2 years. We've probably contacted at least 50, 60 manufacturers, mainly in Italy. We did want to try to do this closer to home, either in the UK or in France, and we quickly realized that Italy remains the area where all the technology and remains in terms of knowledge and expertise. That's where it is, and it's brilliant that it's in Europe, So we, out of all those 50, 60 manufacturers, we went and saw 5 who were interested in having a conversation about trying to develop this with us. And actually, by having a chat with them and by meeting them, we realized it's been quite tough. Not everyone was ready and prepared to go on this journey with us, because it's such a long research and development. They either don't want to, or they're not ready, or it's too early for them. And we have been extremely lucky. We have had an advisor that came in the journey with us, called Bernard Saltiel, who was the CEO of one of the biggest tax French brands called Le Bouhier. And so he's been on this journey with us, and he taught us, and a lot of his expertise, having been the CEO for 20 years at Le Bouhier. So that's been quite amazing to have him. And when we finally found our manufacturer, who's today making our tights, it's been a no-brainer, and it was meant to be. They are ticking all the boxes in terms of sustainability and ethics as well, because it's one thing to come on this journey and be prepared to do the research and development with us, but also having all the other criteria when it comes to sustainability, and the water usage and the electricity and how you treat your staff, and all of that is extremely important. And they are absolutely amazing on this front, one of the most advanced, and we are very proud to call them our partner. And we are also lucky that they were they have this challenger mindset like we have, which is why other manufacturers were not prepared to do that, because they are used to just work with the bigger player, the bigger retailers. And also our manufacturer is producing for those big guys as well. They were prepared to challenge the industry with us. So that's quite amazing.
And what do you think it is that they, obviously this is a subjective response, but why do you think that they were so enthusiastic about working with you? Because I've worked with factories over the years, and generally it's about volume and about kind of how big your name is and how established you are, and it can be really difficult. I've worked with knit suppliers in Italy, for example. It's a very difficult door to open. What was the kind of the crucial point for them in saying yes?
I think it's been 2 things. The first was our passion and our drive to really change things. And the second was to have Bernard by our side. And Bernard was quite known in the industry as well, and in the past there's been an historical relationship as well. So I think those 2 things are what made it possible. And it is, I would like to encourage entrepreneurs and other people who've got ideas and who want to challenge any industry to not give up. And even if you don't have a Bernard by your side, maybe try to go and find one, because there is one somewhere, and people will believe in you, and you can do it.
I mean, it's a round conversation with a lot of people that you find. Some people will be here to help you just like this because they believe in you, and I think it's the most important thing as well is get the conversation going with anyone around yourself, and then you will find a Bernard.
And I think what made it, obviously we've done this during COVID as well, so we had to stop all our visits to Italy, but our partners got a representative in the UK as well, and it's been amazing to be able to almost every day being on the phone with them and have this proximity. Also, it was all online, and by the end of it, it still helped to have someone in the UK as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I think we've wrapped up our chat time discussing what you guys do at Billi London and the yarns that you're using, and why you've decided to produce a product that's that biodegrades in landfill and that isn't designed for recycling. I want to throw it open to the audience because we've got a lot of people here who have joined despite our technical issue on YouTube. Thank you so much for sticking with us. There's a chat bar on the right hand side there, should be for all of your screens. So please type any questions you have in there. I've been answering a few as we've been going along. Or if you'd like, you can unmute and just answer the question directly, ask the question directly. I actually do have one question already that's been sent through, and that's around defining the product that you make as circular. Someone asked a question, can it really be defined as circular if it's being landfilled? And you know, when I looked at the life cycle, I understood that you're capturing biogas, so CO2 that's being emitted as the biodegradation happens. So, and that fuels objects that we use that require electricity. But talk us through the circularity aspects.
Yeah, so the main goal is to become circular, obviously, and we would dream to be able to use a yarn which is both recycled and has this characteristic of enhanced biodegradability. Mm-hmm. For the moment, unfortunately, it's not. This yarn does not exist, but the manufacturers are looking at this, and so this is how we picture, like, for us, this is the main thing to be circular, is to be able to use both, like, a yarn that is both recycled, made from recycled yarn, and which has this characteristic of being able to biodegrade, or either being recyclable indefinitely. So we can't claim, obviously this is not the objective to claim that we are circular, because no one is really circular. Mm-hmm. But this is the main objective, like this is where we want to go, and this is where we're gonna, with our challenger mindset, we will push people to go with us.
So you capture the resources that you can, I mean, obviously with closed loop,
yes. And I mean, it's not always circularity also happen at the at the production stage as well. Like, so as Sophie was saying, our partner or manufacturer or type manufacturer, the water they use, so they're clean. They have installed like a treatment, water treatment, so to be able to reuse the water they've been using. Especially in the dyeing process, and all the electricity they're using as well. They've installed in some infrastructures to be able to use renewable energy. So it's not always circularity also goes in the production process, and you have to look at all the production life cycle of the product from A to Z, mm-hmm. and just analyze where you're lacking, where you need to improve yourself, and then establish the solutions that are available, and think of what you can do, and then have this challenger mindset of saying, okay, there's an issue here, what can we do?
And what's quite amazing as well with the Billi London ties is that during the biodegradation process, they are going to transform into biomass and biogas, so they are going to create renewable energies. Which means, we're getting there in this circular economy, because if they were not biodegrading in 5 years, then this renewable energy will be lost, because it won't be captured quickly enough. So yeah.
Okay. I think it's interesting to kind of hear about how all of the pieces go together, because what's not so common in apparel or hosiery companies is being able to look at a problem like synthetics and biodegradability with 100% focus, and tackle that problem and produce a product that looks to either solve it or go as far as possible with what's available to solving it. I think with incumbent brands, it's very difficult with big kind of broad product lines, global supply chains. I think this innovation is born out of this kind of, like you say, this challenger mindset. There's another question that came through, or a comment actually, more so, about composting and about biodigesters. Some information that was shared that biodigesters can be anaerobic actually. So anaerobic compost is a possibility. Is this something that you've looked into, and does this fall into the same category that we explained before, which is that they're just not at scale, the infrastructure doesn't exist?
So yeah, that's true that you have some biodigester which are, so these are called the industrial compost, which which fits under the anaerobic conditions. So this is something we're actually looking at. So you need to conduct some. We need to conduct some. We are conducting some tests around this. Because obviously these biodigester and methanation, they have exactly the same condition that you can find in the landfill. So we're looking at this, and this is obviously the biodigester is a solution that the government are setting up and developing more and more. And so that would be amazing when everyone could have at their place, like a recycling bin, a compost bin, a bin for all the biomaterial which goes to the biodigester. And so we could say to people, you can actually throw as well your tights, your Billi tights in this bin.
But we're not quite there yet. Our option right now is capturing CO2 emitted from the biodegradation process in landfill. I've got another question here that's come through from MB. Thank you. How scalable is your business? What are some of the limitations to scaling?
The business is very scalable in a way that we are currently. Let me start with the limitations, maybe to start with. The reason why some of the bigger players might not be in this space yet is because when they want to launch a new product, they need to be able to launch the whole new range, and every colors possible, every different denier, every different technicalities. And at the moment, we're still doing the research and development. So we have managed to launch 2 types for now: a 30 denier, which is a medium thickness, for those who are not familiar with it, and a pattern type, which is a 20 denier. But what we are still working on is trying to build and create thinner denier. The thinner the denier, the more difficult it is to use toss yarns. So we are still developing this, and our research is quite promising, but it's still in progress. So in terms of, it's a short-term limitation because we're working on it and we're gonna get there, but it's not available right away. So in terms of scalability, we have the right partner by our side, and we are going to be able to make it happen, whether it takes a year or 2 years. But what we have already managed to do is creating other products using the same yarn. So we currently have prototypes with us for socks, for leggings, which is quite exciting because a legging is a product that is extremely used by the female audience, regardless of the season as well. And being able to offer women a product that they use for some of them almost every day now with COVID as well, that we know is not going to pollute the planet for years and years and years, is quite rewarding, and we're hoping to launch this very soon.
And that's what sort of takes this to the question about scaling. There are real limitations with tights. It's a seasonal product. It's quite, it's a specific product in some ways, but tights, leggings, socks and leggings, socks at the very least are universal products across gender, age, etc. So that sounds really exciting in terms of going to scale. Are there any other brands out there already using these biodegradable yarns in socks that you know of?
Not aware of it.
Okay.
No, not aware of it. But we know other players are gonna come. in the area, but we're not aware of it yet.
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions? We've gone a few minutes over because of our late start, but we have time for another question if anyone wants to pop one in the chat. And if not, I think maybe you can leave us with some final words about your next steps at Billi London and sort of what's on the immediate horizon.
Yes. Well, for those, first, if you have any other questions that you want to ask at any time, you can reach out to us at info@billi-london.com. That's, we'll answer Instagram or email or LinkedIn. We're available. And if you are in the UK, we will be having a pop-up shop in Covent Garden in September. So we would love to meet you there and discuss more. That would be great. And in terms of circularity and, the future of how to make things a bit more sustainable, we are currently trying to join a few consortium and trying to join forces with either brands or industry that's already available. So if anyone would like to join forces with us, we would love to collaborate and do this together, whether it's for tights, socks, leggings, underwear.
Maybe there'll be some innovators coming through the prize that need to work on some product testing.
We can't wait to see that. Yes.
We have a couple of questions that have come through, guys. If you've got a couple of minutes to stay on and answer them. The first one is a question about the elastane being readily available but not widely used. Is, in the first instance, it because it's more expensive, or, I know there are some difficulties in manipulating the yarn and it's not as easy to knit necessarily, but what are the main reasons for it not being adopted, from as far as you're aware?
Yeah, the price, the fact that it requires lots of expertise and knowledge to be able to develop them and use them, and that you cannot, as I said, we're still doing research on it, so you can't just launch a whole new collection.
And I think also from a consumer perspective, the demand was not really there. So I remember back in 2017 when I was asking these suppliers, like, why aren't these fibers more used across the whole industry? And they were like, the demand was not there. And so the demand is starting, and people are starting to be aware of these sort of like fibers which are available. So that's why
we are opening up a new market, and we have the hard job of opening up a new market, and the big industrials are going to watch and see, and then in a couple of years they're probably going to jump on it too, but they need to let the challenger brands like us do the job first by opening up this new market.
And even if they did want to adopt these new yarns, at the moment it's not possible to create every product variation that they have with the yarns. So, I can see it from a large brand's point of view, which is having half of or a portion of your product offering is biodegradable, then raises questions about the other portions of your product. So,
and I think the price as well, because it's an expensive product, it's a premium tights as well, and the big industrials, they are mainstream in terms of pricing, so it's not the same market as well.
Yes, yeah, they retail for around €22. They, from memory, around $32.
We really have the ambition to. For us, we want the whole world to be able to access our tights, and having a pair of tights today that is sold at 27 euros. So there is reasons. One is because of the innovation, but also because of the yarn that we are using. It's a nylon 6.6, and it's one of the most durable and premium on the market. So they are durable, but equally we want to reduce waste in landfills. So we need to make our tights more available as well. So we're hoping that in the future we will be able to produce not entry level market, but a bit more affordable for everyone as well.
Sure. And one last question here, if we can wrap up just in a minute or so, from Brian. There's been a lot of backlash on biodegradable products due to false claims. Have you put your tights into this environment to see if they really biodegrade? I know you've conducted testing, but have you done anything beyond the lab-based testing?
Yeah. So we are extremely proud to have the trademark and the certifications from both our yarns materials to prove that our tights biodegrade, because there has been greenwashing around that, and some people will say their tights will biodegrade, but actually not both materials are being used. Not both materials are biodegradable, and there is no certifications behind it. So we are, we worked hard for the past 2 years to make sure we get those certifications and those trademark.
Okay. So not your own, I mean, it's difficult to recreate landfill conditions, right? But we've done the formal tests that demonstrate its certification. I've popped your email address in the chat so people can see it there. It's info@Billi London. It's billi-london.com if there are any follow-up questions. Before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you so very much to Sophie and Marie for joining me for this conversation, to bring people into the discussion about microplastics and the issues that we face, where we are now, the technology we have at our disposal, and what we need to develop innovation-wise to solve this problem fully. I also, before we go, want to let you all know that there is another fireside chat on the 9th of June at 3 p.m. BST, and that will be with the MA Biodesign academic and graduate team from Central St. Martin's. We'll be talking about living systems and how bacteria and other living organisms can be used to grow materials, and how this evolving area of materials and fashion is linking up with synthetic biology with the likes of bolt threads and others. So thank you so much all for joining in. We will be in contact with you all on email with some follow-up details. But for now, thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Brooke, for having us, and thank you for everyone for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for bearing with us.
Take care. Bye-bye.